Hello, the internet. Slight change to my plans. I was planning on doing 4 videos for the first round, 1 for each division. However, I've actually gotten a few views for these videos. So in order to appease the favorite vice president ever for YouTube, otherwise known as Al Gore, the algorithm, I guess you're supposed to post once a week. So 16 games, I can't play 16 games in a week, which is why nobody does a board game bracket tournament like this, just me. So we've got 8 games, and I'll just break into the top half and bottom half. So there'll be 8 videos for the first round, 4 for the second round, etc. So we've got the top half of the North Division, and we're going to have the results of the top half of the North Division. Do we have any upsets? Well, we have maybe, but we'll see. Now, for those who haven't watched in the previous videos, my kid and I play each game. So, for example, we played Power Grid and Valerian. Each game we ranked out of 10. We added those 2 scores together. We also, if needed, rolled 2 dice, add half the value of the die, and the highest score after the die roll wins the round and possibly moves on to the next round. However, we had the play-ins tournament. We can go back to that video. The winners of the play-ins tournament will have a chance to knock out the worst winners of the first round. For a team to be safe, it needs an 18.5. 18.5, it's safe. Below 18.5, it is probably out. Now, any game that scores 2.5 points or more above its competitor, that game is considered a blowout. Just use the sports terminology, because random luck cannot make that team win. The tiebreaker is the team that gets the better pre-die roll score. So if a team scores a 19 and the other scores a 15, even if this rolls a 6 and that rolls a 1, it can't win. Even if it was only up by 2.5 and it rolled a 6 and they rolled a 1, they'd be tied, but the tie would go to the person that had the higher score before the die roll. So those are called blowouts. Now, also, in the first round, we won't roll any dice for any blowouts unless the team that won didn't score at least 18 points, or scored less than 18 points, because the die roll could decide whether it actually moves on to the tournament or not. Hopefully you followed that. If not, it's okay. I'll explain as we go along. So our first matchup is the 1 versus 16 seed, Power Grid versus Valerian, which is, yes, based on the movie. And if you're thinking, oh, a board game based on a movie, that's got to be an awful board game. It's actually a decent board game, but it is a 16 seed, and it played like a 16 seed should, which means decent, but not a competition. This is not only going to be a blowout, it's possibly going to be the worst blowout in the entire tournament. Power Grid scored a 19 out of 20, so I gave it a 10 because it's my second favorite game of all time. I could give it a 9. Valerian scored a 15. We don't even need to roll the dice. Power Grid moves on. Valerian will play you again next year. And with a 15, it'll probably be a 16 seed again next year. Now, in the last video, actually the last video where I did the seeding special, I warned you that the 8-9 matchups would be insane. And I was not kidding. This was an incredible. Now, the reason why this is a piece of paper is that we have the digital version of Lords of Waterdeep. So we will play digital versions of board games, not just physical versions. So we have First Light Circadians versus Dungeons & Dragons Lord of Waterdeep. This one is so close, it is literally going to come down to a die roll. First Light scored a 17.5. Lords of Waterdeep scored a 17. So for Lords of Waterdeep to win, it has to outroll Circadians by at least 2. So it's got about a 40% chance of winning. So let's roll the dice. First Light is going to be the black die. Lords of Waterdeep will be the green die. Let's see who moves on. Now, if we roll 2 1s, neither will move on. And a game from the play-ins will move in. But this is an exciting roll. And we have a 3 for Lords of Waterdeep, Give it a final score of 18.5, which, if it were to win with an 18.5, would be enough for it to move on. And maybe one of the best games that doesn't win because a 5 for First Light, giving it a total of 20 points. First Light takes the 8-9 seed and will move on to go up against Power Grid in the round of 32. That should be an exciting matchup. Power Grid has a definite advantage there. By the way, for those who don't know, both these games are very, very similar. They're both resource management, work replacement games. First Light uses dice for their workers. Lords of Waterdeep just uses workers. Lord of Waterdeep uses cards, which First Light mostly has some cards, but mostly uses dice. So both very fun games. Very excited to see how to play this one again in the next round. All right, moving on to our 5 versus 12 matchup, Sapiens versus Zing Pao. This one was a blowout. Sapiens scored a 17. Zing Pao only scored a 14. It's a cute little card game, but it's only cute. Unfortunately, with a 14, it will be delegated to the play-ins next year. It will not make the main tournament next year. But with a 17, Sapiens is not guaranteed to move on. I got to roll a die, and it needs to roll a 3 or higher to move on. If it rolls a 1 or 2, it is out of the tournament to be replaced by a game from the play-ins. And survey says, rolls a 6. Sapiens is safe with a final score of 20. Oh, that's 2 20s. That's this is becoming a much more difficult bracket than I thought it would be. Power Grid only has about a 50% shot of making it to the final 4. So, and then 2 of the other 1 seeds have a 66% chance. So Power Grid's route just got a lot tougher because these last year were both 16s, and now they both jumped up. That 8-9 matchup is a pretty good one. All right, and our final matchup was Titan versus Citadels. This was a blowout. Titan is my favorite game of all time versus my second favorite game of all time. Titan scored an 18.5. Citadels, a fun game. My kid doesn't like it as much as I do, so it gets rated down a little bit. But scored at 15, which is a reasonable score, especially for a 13 seed. But Titan will move on to face Sapiens in the second round. So there you have it, the top half of the bracket. We'll get to see the bottom half in another week and see how those teams do. Until then, I'll catch you later.